Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is MsNoBuntu, DIVA, divinely inspired, vibrantly anointed artist, and I'm back again with season 8, episode 4 of Fix My Life with Iyanla. I did not do episode 3 last week because I was in the throes and the depths of a move. I am still very much exhausted, so please bear with me for skipping that week because I was actually moving. Again, before I get into this, thank you for continuing to tune in and come back to the channel to hear my thoughts, my insights, and my perspective on the episodes of the Iyanla Fix My Life healing process illustration. And like I always say in all my videos, for those who are coming in for the first time, this is not a blow-by-blow recall of what happened in the videos, but rather it uses what happened in the episode to contextualize whatever thoughts, whatever insights, whatever epiphanies that I had and wanted to share with you. So if you are looking for this kind of thing, stay tuned and please go into the description box to check for the timestamps if I have time. I don't know if I'll have time. I'm still very exhausted, but check for the chapters in the description box as well as the other parts of this particular episode's sharing of thoughts. In the comment section, it's a pinned comment, so you will see the other parts there as well. But without further ado, let me get into what this particular episode was about. So this week's episode is titled 99 Problems and My Mom is One. Here we meet the Hilliard family that is 2 daughters and obviously a parent, a mom and a dad. And each one, as they're coming into the house, you know, into the healing space, the daughters come in together and they're given a board with like scrambled letters on it, and they're asked, you know, to try and put the letters into some kind of sentence starting with I am here or we are here because, and they can't figure it out. So Iyanla helps them out, and their sentence is we are here because we came to avoid the backlash if they didn't come to the show. So Iyanla sits with these 2 daughters, Lexi/Alexis and Leilani. Sits with them. They are 32 and 26 years old. Sits with them and, you know, asks them, so why did you come here? Well, our mom wrote, and we knew that if we did not come, she would give us the silent treatment. We did not want the backlash. So this is why we are here. And then, you know, just she begins to ask a little bit about them. So why are you at home? The 32-year-old Leilani. Well, when the pandemic came, she's a flight attendant. The pandemic came and she lost her job, so now she had to move back home. The 26-year-old was at school, pandemic stress and life stress, you know, and now she's back home. So both of them are back home. Each and every one of both of them coming in were tested for, actually all of them, everyone in the family were tested for alcohol content in their system or some kind of inebriation in their system. And the youngest, Alexis, her breathalyzer, it comes in at 0.22, which is like, you need help walking, you need help, you cannot be driving type levels of being inebriated. And then Leilani is at 0.06, which I don't know, it's not bad. I don't know the levels. I was never a drinker and a driver, so I don't know the different levels. Anyway, so Iyanla says it's interesting that you are here and you're saying you're here because you don't want the backlash from your mother, but there's alcohol in your systems and you're not talking about that. Why you are here, what's causing you to drink, what's causing you to arrive here into a healing process with signs of you know, mind altering substances in your system. What's that about? And then obviously because they're both daughters, the question that she asked them is, what has your mom taught you about being a woman? And they both say, well, our mom taught us to be strong, you know. And And then but then Iyanla looks back at what they said about, well, we came here because we didn't want any backlash from our mom. She says, oh, so she wants you to be strong women except for with her. Otherwise, you get backlash from her, but you must be strong everywhere else in the world, but not with her, because from her, you're going to get backlash. Double messaging. And this is a lot about what parents do. They want you to be something in the world, but they don't want you to be that thing at home. They want you to be independent, self-sufficient in the world. You step into their houses, they start treating you like teenagers, to telling you you can't be out until 10 past 10 p.m. in the evening, and you're like, which one is it? You know, I'm grown now. Yes, I'm in your house for a minute or a second or an hour because of circumstances, but what you taught me for the world needs to be consistent whether I'm in your house or whether I'm outside of your house in the world. Otherwise, that's double messaging. And I thought that was very interesting. So the dad comes in as well. What is his name? Let me find his name. His name is Patrick. Dad comes in, Patrick comes in, and, you know, again, he also gets the board with the scrambling and with the scrambled letters, and make a sentence that says, I am here because, you know, and he says, I'm here because of my wife. Again, it goes back to, for him as well, similar to the daughters. If he did not come, it would be an issue for the wife. So in many ways, he lets the wife control. And he says he does this because he came from the military, and he was very hard, and he was very stern, and very just, you know, an inaccessible guy, and he wanted to change that. So as a way to change that, he kind of steps back as opposed to being too aggressive, and so the wife takes over. But at the end of the day, what happens is that the wife is leading in his house, and he's not leading, and he's not dealing with the root of why he's avoiding being the head of his house, why he's avoiding being the leader of his house, and setting the tone for his family and his household. And it comes up later on, but I'll talk about it when it comes up later on. Next up is the wife. Again, she gets her own scrambled board, you know, with scrambled letters, and her letters say, I am here, I am the problem. She literally kind of quickly does it, and it says problem, and she's like very unimpressed with all of this. Then they have a conversation with Iyanla, and they talk about how her and her husband have, you know, attended counseling, but he felt that he doesn't get it. She feels alone in the marriage, as if they are, you know, roommates, and that if she were to rate their marriage between 1 and 5, she would rate it 3. And then she tells the story about, you know, when the pandemic came, they had just gotten her mom, what is the wife's name? It is Erica. The wife's name is Erica. They just gotten Erica's mom out of the house, who had been living with them for about 3 years. So she thought, oh, I'm about to get time to rest now. I'd been dealing with a criticizing mom because she suffers, the mom suffers from dementia. You know, I'm about to get some rest now, look towards my retirement years. And then the pandemic came. So she talks about how she had just gotten rid of this mother that she had suffered a mother wound with, you know. And then, but then Iyanla kind of draws her to how this relationship with her mother, Erica, the children's grandmother, that relationship affected Erica, the mother's relationship with her daughters, Erica and Leilani. And that as long as there's that kind of conflict within her, with the relationship within her mom, like the sense of lack of healing, then it's going to affect how she parents her daughters, you know. It's either she's going to be the same thing, or in trying to not be that thing, she's going to be something else, but something that's toxic, and that is the tone of which is under the control of the wound, as opposed to the tone of which is under the control of a person who has healed their mother wound, and how, you know, they have been hurt by their own hurting mother. And then they just have a conversation with, well, are you one of the major things that you are going to have to think about is whether you are ready to hear the truth from everyone in the house, because it seems as though you have set it up so that they don't know, everyone in the house, from the husband to the daughters, don't know how to speak authentically the truth to her. She set it up that way because they all reported that, you know, whenever they have something to say or something has happened and she's not pleased with this, then there is silent treatment. And that's how you set it up, that you know, people don't feel safe to then speak up around you and speak up their truth, be authentically themselves, and speak their authentic truth to you about what they're going through and what's actually going on with them, because you set it up so that you're unapproachable. When the dad sits with Iyanla again, you know, he rates his marriage at 4 out of 5. You know, and he mentions nothing about roommates. He mentions nothing about, you know, the spark being gone in their marriage, which are all things that Erica mentioned, that, you know, she misses how she used to feel around him when they first started in their relationship, and now she doesn't feel supported. But then what Patrick says is that, you know, one of the words that I guess, you know, they do a preparation, they have an entire file on the person that prepares them to be able to prepare for each episode at the Iyanla at Fix My Life. And so one of the things that he mentioned was, terms that he mentions was, or phrases that he mentioned was nuclear meltdown. And he speaks to that as, and says that the arguments are misconstrued as disrespectful. So he avoids and sacrifices saying what he wants to actually say, you know, to his wife, Erica. And again, this is the setup that Iyanla had a conversation with Erica about, is that you've set it up that nobody really speaks the truth to you, you know, yet you say everyone is kind of closed off and or isolated, or your husband is a bit distant, your marriage out of 5 you rating it 3, but you've set it up such that no one can be authentic with you. And then there's a conversation about, you know, the wife having found Lexi passed out in the passage, drunk, passed out in the passage. And he found Lexi passed out in, you know, in her car, having had an accident. But none of them mentioned this and had an extensive conversation about this. And he thinks that's why they're there. And just that practice of not having a conversation about something that has the elephant in the room, you know, is part of why they are here, because they did nothing about it. And Iyanla's interested as to where that comes from, that something like that happens. Your daughter's passed out in the passage at home. Your daughter's passed out in a car, creates a, you know, is in a car accident as a result of that, and you both pretend as if you're not here. Who set it up in such a way that those discussions and those conversations are not being had? And none of them mentioned that, you know, we are here partly because there's an alcohol problem. There's an alcohol problem kind of coursing through the family. And that we want to nip in the bud, or want to have a conversation about, get to the root of what's really going on with us in relation to alcohol, and then begin to heal and break free from whatever that is about. None of them mentioned this. They're like, we came here because mom, or I came here because my wife would be mad if I did not come here. Again, this practice of things are happening, but you're not calling them what they are because somewhere, somehow, or someone somehow has set it up that way. So Iyanla talks to Leilani, the 32-year-old who was a flight attendant, lost her job, had to move back home. And she says she sees herself as a black sheep. Leilani is not Patrick's daughter, but her and Alexis share the mother. But the dad is not her biological dad, but obviously she's probably adopted. She's only probably mostly known Patrick as her dad. But she says that, you know, she feels different from everyone else, partly because she's not the dad's biological child, and she feels like she has no voice and doesn't speak up. Again, part of this is because she says, you know, her mom withholds and withdraws love when she doesn't get her way, and or if there's something that has happened that is maybe disappointing or that needed to be addressed, the mom just withdraws and just gives silent treatment. And Iyanla says, are you aware that that's actually, you know, punishment and emotional violence? And she's like, I guess so, you know. She puts it, so Iyanla takes a chair and she puts it in front of Leilani. And she says, pretend this on this chair, your mom is sitting here, Erica's sitting here. What are you feeling? Tell her what you are feeling. And she, just to be able to speak to her now, pretend she's sitting in front of you, tell her what you're feeling. And she says she's feeling anxious. You know, she won't be talked to if she speaks her truth. She'll be ignored. And at the same time, she feels pissed. You know, she feels really angry about this because she's 32 years old and she should be able to talk her truth and speak her truth to her mother. But she's 32 and she's still going through this as if she's like an adolescent, not afraid to speak to her mom. Iyanla brings up the question, is it possible that you ended up having to move back home so that you can grow up in your mother's presence, so that you can be in your mother's house and occupy yourself as an adult in her house and not recede into a childlikeness that is acceptable to her, that is not offensive to her? Is it possible that's what has happened about why you had to move back home? It's about resolving that, you know, I don't know if it's a power struggle, authority dynamic, where, you know, when you're kids and you're in your teens and when you're in the one digit age, your parents are like here and you are here. And then you get to your 20s, and if the dynamic is still like that, that's a problem, because then it becomes this power struggle, and it's as if parents don't know how to be parents of 1, 2, 3 year olds, and you know, single digit people, double digit teenagers, but they don't know how to be parents of 20+ year olds, of adults, and how to interact with their adult children in their own home as adults, and not demand that their children have to diminish into childlike shadows of themselves whenever they enter their home of origin, which is their parents' house. And I think that's a very important conversation and an exercise and thing to go through within yourself as a young adult and as an adult going into your parents' house. There are a lot of parents who struggle with not knowing how to be a parent to adult children, and they want the dynamic to always remain as they are the authoritarian figure, and you walk into their house and you're a child in my house, but it's like, actually I'm your child, but I'm actually an adult. So you cannot treat me like a child anymore. I'm not here to disrespect you in your house, but at the same time, I am an adult in your house. And it's interesting how in the preparation for having children, and I wonder if people think about, children will grow up to be teenagers. They will grow up to be in their 20s and their 30s. They'll grow up to get married. They'll grow up to live outside of your house. They'll grow up to drink, smoke, do whatever it is that they want to do as adults, outside of what you've taught them. And it's just a very strange thing to me that people are parenting as if a 20-something-year-old is not going to grow up to enjoy freedom to the fullest, because it's the first time that you're enjoying freedom in that way in your 20s, and that there's some things that are not necessarily safe as maybe a 40-something or 40 plus late 30s person. You know now that you probably shouldn't do that, but in your 20s you don't, because independence is new to you. But to have that perspective of, well, if I survived it and I lived through it, surely they will survive because they were born for such a time as this, and they will be able to handle the challenges of this time that they are born into. Obviously, some children don't survive it. Some children end up dead. Some children end up in very dire situations. But there has to be a point where you let go and give these children back to the Creator and trust that what you have taught them, if you have taught them anything, because that's the other thing, what you have taught them, they will remember. And hopefully it's everything that you know, and everything else that you don't know, you encourage them to learn and find out. I just wish, and I just hope that parenting just really becomes more a conscious choice going forward from this year onwards. That is not this thing where people forget that they were once teenagers and boy crazy or girl crazy. They forget that they were once 20-something-year-olds and club hopping crazy and being in cars with boys crazy. you know, it's gonna happen over and over and over again, and you have to trust that you've equipped and you've trained up and you have poured into this child, and so by the time that they are facing the world, they have what they need to be able to be there and not be eaten up and chewed out and spit out by the world, but be able to navigate, take some knocks, but get up and survive and thrive nonetheless.